Doing? Oh, hey, Biblical, how you doing?
Hey, brother, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How's your day been?
Man, it's been good till that last guess. I
Yeah, at first I'm like, is this like a friendly troll that's just gonna start like laughing, having a good time, or I don't know. Like, do I even know who that person is? I have no idea.
I have no idea either, but I swear he's been going to the Darth Dawkins School of Argumentation because I was waiting on him to say, "Oh, you're being rude, man. You're just being rude."
Yeah, exactly right. Where is he? Where's the runner?
Yeah, I have
No,
no idea. That was an absolute joke, and I'm sorry that people put you through that. They really show those Christian
no.
virtues.
No, and it's okay because I know that some people were like this is a waste, but honestly, like I found it good for me because I like to try to practice my patience as well, you know? So I think, yeah, Hart, I'll accept your request in a moment. So I think talking to people that, infuriate me, I think is good practice for me as well. So if they're not going to practice the patience, I may as well for the both of us.
That's fair, because I didn't hear you cuss them out one time, but man, they were all about the ad hominems and cussing you out.
Yeah, I
It's
think I said
weird.
one thing back that I was like, I shouldn't have said that, but I didn't say any of the crap that he
But you
said,
know what's
especially at
weird
the
is
end
when the
there.
atheist practices the fruits of the spirit more than the Christian.
Yeah,
That's
right?
what I
It's
find
it's it's
interesting.
wild. All right, I'm gonna let in Hart
Atheists are
here.
better Christians than Christians.
Honestly. Uh, hey, Fireheart, how you doing?
Hi, I have to speak like in a lower tone. My sibling is asleep in the room next to me. But can I just say that you have such great patience? Because if it were me, I would have literally slapped the Christian out of him through the phone. That would,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I know I
yeah.
yelled a couple times, and I'm sorry if anyone had their eardrums hurt by that, but I
Christians,
tried.
they act like kindness and respect is like not the bare minimum of a human being, like the bare expectation, the minimum of an expectation. I'm so sorry I had to go through that, but I do have a few points to the topic.
Yeah, for sure.
So
No, I'm sorry, you muted. I don't know if you can hear us.
hello, hello.
There you go. Can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. I live in New York City, but I was born in Utah, and I was born to a Mormon mom and a Southern Baptist dad. They're both out of the religion now, but like I was raised with like the whole Christian nationalism. Like it's like a really big thing in Utah. Like if you go back now, like most of like people who live in Utah think that there should be like total Christian like dominance around the world. Like they're scary people. But I'm a law student now, and I'm a first year at Columbia, so I'm learning about these things, and I think it's just like such a preposterous thing to even like I think people thinking, excuse me, I have COVID. People even thinking that like this is a good thing. Those people need to be like mentally checked because it's not a good thing. Um, it erodes religious freedom. Number one, and it opposes freedom, like secularism. Excuse me. Um, and the separation of church and state would be no more. And these are like critical to our identities as Americans. Like as Americans, these are aspects to our like to our democracy that are just supposed to be there. We cannot have a democracy. We can't have a free country if with a authoritarian religious government. I mean, it doesn't work. people need to learn how to be moral without religion. If you need Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever it may be to be a moral human being, then something is wrong with the way that you conduct yourself in life, because you should not depend on blind faith to be moral as a human being. And I think we can even see it like when Christians get angry, they become incredibly immoral and offensive. Um, and it's because they need this thing to be moral themselves, which is a scary thing. And just the definition of this is a threat to democracy. Absolutely. You can't merge religion with national identity, because Christian nationalism also is going to be the erode of democratic principles. One religion cannot be privileged, because then it becomes easier to justify undemocratic actions to protect, right? To quote unquote protect, like religious dominance and undermining equality and representation of human beings as a whole. Not to mention, there's so much. Like there's so much. And I like, as someone who's a lot. I mean, I thought this was like common sense, but I mean, like clearly it isn't. I mean, but we've seen periods in history where Christian nationalism was present. Colonial America, colonial Europe, slavery was an issue because of Christian nationalism. So was the Holocaust. So was the Crucibles. So were the Salem witch trials. So were the Spanish Inquisitions. So were the Crusades. So were the almost every single war in history literally has religion behind it. So adding Christianity and adopting it into a moral law and conducting an entire national identity among this premise would be critical to future progression of humanity.
I 100% agree with you. I was when I was younger and a Christian, I had more of a Christian nationalist view, and it wasn't until much later in life that I realized how oppressive that would be to other people. And
Well, the thing is that Christianity is
it's rough.
indoctrination. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't blame yourself, because it's an indoctrination of like, you're born into it. It's a cult, in my opinion, and there needs to be restrictions on Christianity in this country. Like, I firmly believe that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming up here
Mm-hmm.
and explaining that to us. I appreciate
Oh,
your time.
and just like one last thing, if anyone ever comes up and asks you like to debate, engage in like a logical, like proving God is wrong. I'm not sure if you heard Occam's razor. It's like basic like anti-theism.
Yeah,
Like if
the
God can lift a rock.
like is
Hmm.
that the most likely, the most simple explanation is the most
I
likely
mean,
one?
kind of. I mean, like kind of. Like you can say like if God can he lift a rock, that he can he create a rock that he can't lift, and if he can't, then he is restrained by logic. Him therefore meaning he's not omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. And if he can do that, that means his power is not logical and doesn't make any sense. So that's pretty much it. But thank you so much for having me up here. I appreciate it, and good luck and props to you for
Yeah,
like doing what you're doing. Have a
thank you. I
wonderful day.
appreciate your time. Thank you. And yeah, I would just say like the restriction I would give to Christianity would be the same restriction I give to any other religion as well. It's just you can't oppress others with it, and that can include extreme forms of, or like very specific forms of, indoctrination and stuff like that. We see it with like the cults, Jim Jones and things like that all the time, of how they indoctrinate children, and we can see how some of the ways that they do that are extremely harmful. It's yeah. All right, I'm gonna grab the next guest. I think it was Mary, and then Tim, and then Ori, I think. So we'll go Mary first. All right, we're loading. We're loading.
Hello?
Yes, hi. There we go. We connected. What's up?
I'm sorry. So what I wanted to say is that I completely respect your opinion about like atheism and stuff, and I acknowledge your respect. But what I have to say is that I see that you set up a sign which says freedom or Christian. What does that say?
It's freedom over Christian nationalism.
Okay.
Basically, if between these two options, I would prefer freedom over Christian nationalism.
Yeah, so I see you pick freedom, but the thing is, what I'm gonna say is that God. This might sound controversial. God created freedom, right? Correct. And
I don't think so.
well, God created freedom because, as you can see, He gave human freedom. He gave them will to do what they want. He doesn't control
From
every aspect on earth.
free will is not biblical. The Bible is actually very clearly stating that it is the will of God and not the will of man, and that all things go according to the will of God. It talks about predestination. It gives very specific examples of many people that make their own choices and God overriding that choice. Free will is not biblical, and the entirety of the Bible is whatever little quote unquote will you do have, you're supposed to surrender it to God. So it's to be a slave of God. And Wonder, I did not mute you.
And okay, I see your perspective, but personally, I think
But real quick, Mary, I'm so sorry. Are you over 18?
yes. I just have a really pitchy voice.
What year were you born?
I was born in 2004.
I don't know. I'm sorry, Mary. I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical. Maybe sorry. But Bourbon just started saying things and got the flag, so we had to restart. Hey Tim, how are you doing?
I'm
Hey
doing good. How
Skates,
are
how are
you?
you? I'm doing okay. What would you like to talk
Good.
about on the back?
Well, just real quick, I think I'm probably going to lose signal here before too long, but
All right.
I did want to just real quick, just from what somebody said earlier, said that like the vast majorities of wars happen because of religion. Uh, Demonstrably false. There's plenty of evidence that point to the contrary. The vast amount of wars were not done in the name of any particular religion. That's not to say that the claim is that atheism did it. I'm just saying that the motives for most conflict over the earth has not been in the name of religion. So that's just one thing.
Okay.
But I can certainly, you know, I can certainly say that there were certainly those kinds of things that did take place. But I did see your graphic here. Full disclosure, I am a Christian. But the freedom over Christian nationalism, couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. You cannot compel someone to have faith, and you cannot compel somebody to live not just a moral framework, but a completely like spiritual framework of like having to accept the whole purpose of at least the faith that I espouse is that it needs to be freely come to, not forced. Um, so
Sure. And
I would
and,
just
and
say from
wouldn't
my
you
personal take to
also
that.
sure and I think like especially like a Christian national stance where like it's enforcing Christian rules and biblical laws on the rest of society, wouldn't it, especially the ones that, may be more done by those that believe and those that are practicing, wouldn't it be kind of maybe blasphemous or at the very least disrespectful if you're forcing non-believers to partake in that? Because it wouldn't be a
Uh,
genuine worship, right?
Right. Well, yes, it's compelled action, not something that is of the heart and of the mind.
Hey, Giga.
Something that you. So when you did say that you didn't believe that the Bible's about free will, I don't think it's a. I think people have different terms of what free will is. I would say limited autonomy. I wouldn't say that I can make something. I can't make money up here in my hand from nothing. Right. So I don't have the free will to to make something magically appear in my hand, but I have the free will, limited autonomy, that is, to go and find a job and earn money, right, or not. I
Right.
do have that choice. Yeah.
And I think that that's a great clarification to make. So for me,
Yeah.
when I say free will, I'm saying the ability to make a decision without forced outside influence. You
Mm-hmm.
know, classic example is I have a weapon, give me your money or else.
Mm-hmm.
You can give me your money, but no cop in their right mind is going to be like, so you gave them the money. I don't see a robbery here. They would understand the situation and understand that your choice in giving over the money was forced outer influence and
Right.
therefore not a quote unquote free will decision. So when I see it in the Bible, as I do see it as God has made a system up where the only way to end up in a situation where you're not in eternal torment forever or rejected from God or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the case is by doing this very specific thing. And when most people go through their life not knowing for a fact if it's true or not, I think that it's a really hard thing to ask someone to do that.
Well,
And there's no valid reason to ask for that. So the threat of you're
mm-hmm.
going to be cut off or you're going to be in eternal torment or stuff like that if you don't worship me or if you don't follow me or if you don't accept me,
Right.
I see that as the absence of free will.
Right. I would say to answer that, as far as it pertains to like those who do not know that whole question, there are clear passages in Scripture, though I can't quote them off the top of my head, of talking about that you will be judged by what you know, and so if I, let's say that I have a somewhat reasonable amount of the truth claims of Christianity, and I still reject them. Well, I think there's an adjudication to being made there. That, I mean, that's why I try to say, God is the final judge. I do not know the fate of any one person on this earth besides what I hope to be my own. Right? I cannot make that judgment call. Right? Um, but as far as that's concerned, and when we talk about the Old Testament, I know you were like reading off of Samuel and stuff like that. There are different ways in which you can take that context of the biblical scholarship of what's been published out there. A lot of people will say that it's ancient Hebraic war language. It's the same as comparing, like, saying, like, oh, we're gonna go to this baseball game, and the Atlanta Braves are going to decimate the Brewers, or they're going to annihilate the Yankees. Well, it's hyperbolic language, right? And there's been multiple pieces of evidence that suggest, even there in the conquests of Joshua and even on into the Kings and Chronicles and Samuel, that these civilizations that they were being talked about, there is evidence for conquest, but there's also evidence for reconstruction and for peoples coming back. And then when it dealt with the Amalekites in Second Samuel, you have to understand that was a period of about 300 to 400 years that God was telling them to turn away, to telling them to repent, telling them, sending them prophets, sending them messages, telling them to stop. I mean, we're talking about Amalekites who were waging war on anybody who was around them, and even slaughtering their own pregnant women and children and stuff like that. And God said that He would use the Israelites as His cudgel against such a barbaric peoples, and gave them centuries, and they warred with the Israelites for generations, as it says. And finally, God brings His judgment down. And so it's hard to get into, and I understand the language there. I've had to wrestle with that myself, and the problems of evil, and why would God allow evil? Why would He, give decrees of evil? But if it's to be taken with any grain of salt, even with Jewish sources that you cited earlier, I do have multiples that I've looked through that do speak to the idea of one, hyperbolic language, two, historical evidence of reconstruction of many of these places, and then three, being I hate the way that this guy worded it earlier, that bourbon guy. I couldn't believe it, but there is something to be said of an ontological difference between the moralities of what we as creatures are capable of, and then the justifications that God has. If He is, that is, if and only if you grant, if He is omnipotent, omniscient, all these kinds of things, then Him transporting the spirit and giving bodily resurrection, as He's promised at one point, to, say, even the infant, displaying His will against the Amalekites, who again were in mass slaughtering their own people, as it was written in there, then God can have a justification for it if He knows in perfect knowledge any and all things. That's hard to grasp. It's hard to wrap your head around it. But it's in the understanding of scriptures, as far as it's understood, is that God gives law, but the law does not determine what God is to do. The law is for humans, and much of the law in the Old Testament was for the ancient Israelites, not even for the whole world. It's not until Christ comes into the picture that we have virtue ethics, and when Jesus says, if you even have hate in your heart, then you've committed murder. And it's a progressive theology. It's a theology that is slowly being revealed, and until you get to the summation of it, which is what Christ says, I no longer call you servants, but friends, because I have revealed to you what I and the Father are doing. So it's hard, especially with the individualistic ideas that we have as far as like freedom and law and things like that. And I get that, and I don't ask anybody to be convinced of that argument necessarily, but that while emotive and while it feels bad, it does, if you just take it at its logical points, can make sense. But again, I understand that's not something that most people are comfortable jumping over, and I freely accept that.
Yeah, and I thank you for your explanation on that
Sure.
as well. I know that Bourbon probably worded things that in ways that a lot of other Bible believers would not have worded them. But I also have talked to many others that would word them the exact same way, which is a shame. But when it does come to things like the spirit gets just transferred from the baby to heaven and stuff like that. That kind of goes with like my third point of like, how can you be a Christian but not pro-choice? Is that like it's one of the reasons I have for that is, if you just believe that the spirit or the soul of the infant or baby or aborted fetus just goes straight to heaven, and therefore wouldn't have the chance to fall into the sin and maybe end up going to hell. I don't understand how the most how would the most moral thing not be to just have all the abortions and then let humanity die out? And I think that would go along with being shown that from the Bible, God clearly doesn't care about slaughtering kids. He's fine with it because, their spirit just goes up to heaven. So it clearly doesn't seem to matter.
No, well, even in Deuteronomy, God says that He is the God of the orphan, the widow, and the stranger. I mean, the least of these. He says that pretty outright. But as far as like Him not caring, I don't accept that as part of the language that is there. And again, we're looking at everything in hindsight, at a position now where we are in our kind of country and the kind of laws that we have, that like even the ideas of these kinds of things would seem barbaric. At the time, we're just the bare minimum of what God is asking the most, as He put it, the most stiff-necked people, as He chose them out of the nations when He's given them all over to principalities. He chooses the Israelites as the most stiff-necked, stubborn people and says that they will be mine, and I call them mine. And then guides them through a progressive theology of like, even when it came to like the conquests and things like that it was something that was so radically different from what the rest of the ancient landscape was at that time.
Well, I actually don't think it was. They were actually doing the exact same things as the other nations were doing. They through their own God belief invaded other places, took captives, took the ones that they wanted for wives and possessions and slaves, off the rest, or sold them or whatever they did, and then they, again, did a practice of favoring their own people over.
Well, no. Even
others.
In Deuteronomy, it says that you could not sell them if you were displeased with them, you had to let them go. But, however, you also have to understand that
that specific one is. You didn't have to let them go with anything. It was literally, you could see a female prisoner of war, say, hey, I like that, take her, strip her of her identity and her culture by shaving her head and her nails, give her only 30 days to mourn her family, and if you look at it in more of a historical context, to ensure that she wasn't pregnant with another man's child, to ensure that she was, quote-unquote, a virgin and stuff. is another reason why that 30 days was so important. And then he could go into her as a
Right.
husband.
I can understand that.
And then it was when
but
he no longer cared about her or wanted her, he could just throw her out in the street with nothing. With nothing. So this is literally just allowing men to take female prisoners of war, using them for sex, and then throwing them out when they're done with them.
But well, now hang on. But that implies that having someone as a wife is nothing more than just a sexual partner, and that's it. Which
When they're a prisoner of war, yes.
No. Even in the most ancient context, when it talks about a husband and wife becoming one flesh, like as it says in Genesis, and having a wife, that was bringing them into your family as your own. You have to understand, ancient Israelite tribal systems were all familial based. They were all family based. So if you're talking about taking someone as a wife, you are making them as your own for yourself. And even Jesus goes back to the times of Moses and says, Moses said it was okay. I'm telling you it's not. Again, this is a progressive theology that it doesn't just start with the utmost moral maxim, even though they were very different than most of the situations that most of the ancient times found themselves in, but then kept dragging them forward into more moral landscapes and progressed them through. And that also coincides with the idea of having free will, that God, as a nation, as a corporate nation, is dragging like the Israelites into more moral frameworks, but that amongst the individual, that they still had a free will to act with or against that accordance. And again, it's hard to just be able to just debate that like in a 2-minute spiel. But again, there's a far richer story there than just what the verses are just saying on plain text. And again, it seems like a cop out. And if you want to label that as such, that's totally fine. But well, no, Jesus did not say
I won't label it as a cop out.
Wait. I just saw a comment. Jesus didn't say it was wrong. He said he was there to uphold the law. Well, no, he didn't say he was there to uphold the law. He said that he was there to fulfill it, so that we were no longer under it.
Well, actually, he said he was here to fulfill it, not to abolish it. Jesus made it very clear that the law stands until heaven and earth pass away. And heaven and earth have not passed away.
To fulfill.
So the law still stands.
Not just uphold. No, but you understand, Christ's words and own teachings take the progression of ideas of slavery, which he was completely against, the ideas of marriage, which he was complete. What are you talking about?
Jesus never said anything about slavery, but his disciples said that basically the slaves obey your masters, even the cruel ones.
Servants obey your masters, but no,
the New Testament,
wait.
The New Testament does not care about
taking a slave and having a servant were two totally different things. And moreover, that if a person didn't have any kind of heir in the family, that a servant was to inherit all of the Lord's treasures. So there was also
that wasn't just a Jewish thing. That was other cultures did that as well. Again, like I don't see a difference between what the ancient Israelites were doing than any of the other ancient cultures were doing. They were doing the exact same thing as everyone else.
No. I mean, you talk about the temples of Baal where they're boiling babies in cauldrons and stuff like that, ad infinitum.
Yeah, and then and we can see chapters in Exodus as well as Ezekiel who backs it up when God demands the firstborn of everything that is birthed in Israel, including the animals as well as humans, and Ezekiel backing up that includes sacrificing them.
And why do you think animals, that
sacrificing all the firstborn that were born, including those of humans? So we can see that in Ezekiel. We can see that in Exodus. We also see how Abraham did not bat an eye when God told him to sacrifice Isaac. He was like, okay. And then we also see in Jephthah. We also see Jephthah's daughter. Wait. This is my last point. Hold on, Tim. Wait, Tim. This is my last point, and then I'll let you speak. And then we also see in Judges 11, Judges
when
11,
Jephthah makes the promise to God,
who sacrifices his daughter as a burnt offering to God after God kept his
No, it doesn't say a burnt offering. It does not say burnt offering in that text.
It does.
No. He does offer his daughter to God, but God does not make that wage with him. You have to understand, Jephthah at the time had a monotheistic view, but still had a lot of the other practices of ancient religions that included God, but with other people, other religions as well. So he makes a bargain. He makes God's providence from the beginning was to deliver Jephthah through that conquest.
Oh, Tim, you're cutting. You're cutting in and out.
He had to make what?
Tim, can you hear me?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
Hello?
I'm on a terrible. Hey, I'm here.
Okay,
Hi, I'm
I'm
here.
so sorry. You kind of gargled up for me.
That's
I
okay.
couldn't.
I'm
Yeah.
losing signal. I appreciate your time, and I think it was I wish I could go
Yeah.
longer. But my son just took his first steps, so I need to get home and
Oh, of
see him.
course.
So,
That's
but anyway, I
important.
appreciate your
Well,
time.
congratulations
Yeah, yeah.
with that, and
Well, thank you,
go
thank you.
share that happy moment. You're welcome back anytime. We can
I
talk
appreciate
more.
it. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right,
Take care,
thank you,
Tim.
thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.
All right. Well, I'm so glad that Tim is on his way home to share that proud and happy moment with his son and his family. That's great. I think we have one more guest. Oh no, I guess not. I thought we had one more guest. It's almost 5. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes, but I do have to get going here in a little bit. We had a couple of really good conversations. Our first one, Bourbon, was just wacky. I don't know what was going on with that. He said that he's talked to me before. I don't recall. And if he did, well, yikes. But no, Tim was cool, and I liked our other couple guests that came up as well. But yeah, so just to recap. Freedom over Christian nationalism. I've been seeing lots of Christian nationalist lives lately. People have been promoting that, and I think it's very anti-American. I'm from America, so this is a big deal to me. I don't want my country to be a Christian nationalism. I would like it to be a land of freedom. I would like for everyone to be able to exist here, Christians, non-Christians alike. I want equal freedoms and protections, and I don't want one to be able to enforce, their laws or views to force the other to do what they don't want to do. Then I don't think being LGBT plus in any way is wrong, but I know lots of people hold that view, and if you do, or if you know anyone that does, share the life with them, and maybe we can get a conversation going, or I'll be back probably later tonight and we can talk more then. And then, how can you be a Christian but not pro-choice? I think that if you want to go the free will way, then you would have to. Then the only logical approach would be, I will warn against abortion. I will do everything I can to give other options, but I can't stop them from making their choice. That's something that God's going to judge them for. That's their own thing. And then also, the God of the Bible offs kids too and orders it too. So it's clearly not, well, children are innocent and you can't do that to them, because that would be contradictory to the actions and orders of the biblical God as well. So those are just some thoughts I've had. But I appreciate everyone for their time. We have one more guest. We'll do like 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get going. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay. What would you like to talk about?
I wanted to discuss the second one.
For sure. Do you think being LGBT is wrong in any way?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, why?
They're all, like it's all controlled by Zog, right? So I think that's mainly the reason I'm against it. It's all a plot from Zog.
I don't know what Zog is, but okay.
Yeah, you could search it up online. Zog
Alright.
is like, so yeah, that's I'm just against it. It's all of it has roots in this sort of, you know, destructive order from Zog. So I can't. It's been weaponized from that. So can't really support something that's been weaponized.
Okay. What's wrong with Zod? What's bad about Zod?
Zog. So it stands.
Zog.
Okay. How do I say what it stands for without getting your TikTok? How do I say it without getting like your?
I don't know.
Oh no, I don't know if you could just like search it out like Zog me. Yeah. So basically, yeah, Zog is just controlling all the gay people, or like the movement hijacked it. Basically, I mean, I can't support something that Zog wants to basically have. Yeah.
Well, all right. I guess I don't. I don't know. Someone's saying that you're a white supremacist. Is that true?
No, I just think the
No.
images. I
Oh, there we go. Hate speech. All right. Well, guys, thanks for being here. It was a blast. All right. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.